This podcast is part of the Podcast Arcade Network.
Welcome to episode 18 of Paranormal Dads. I'm your co-host, Pat.
I'm Eddie.
And I'm guest host, Coleton.
Join us as we go in search of the world's monsters, myths, and mysteries, right here on Paranormal Dads.
We're back.
Here we are.
We're doing it again.
For people who worried, don't worry. We didn't get abducted by aliens.
We're still here.
We didn't
alive and well.
We didn't get stolen by Bigfoot.
Andy, we can't say for sure where he is.
He's
on special assignment.
He's on special assignment. He is not missing, but he's definitely
Probably in the Pacific Northwest.
off the grid. We'll put it that way. So,
But we're here. You know, it's tough for the three of us to get together. We're going to keep cranking out some episodes. Colton is once again sitting in.
you are the Robin to our Batman. You are the Little John to our Robin Hood. You are definitely filling in.
What's
for
the
now.
term? He's our ward.
He's our ward.
Lord.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You're our intern. You're a paranormal intern. Go get your dad some coffee.
Make some hot pockets.
So anyway, here we are.
So yeah.
Another new episode of Paranormal Dads. We've got some interesting things lined up for you this time around.
We do.
What you been up to, Eddie?
Oh my goodness.
You've been a busy boy lately.
I've been a busy boy. There's a lot going on. You know, instead of maybe doing this at the end, we can do this in the front.
Sure.
We got a lot coming up, not just with Paranormal Dads, but also with the whole Podcast Arcade Network. You've heard us talk about it kind of off and on, but now the time is upon us. It's funny how quickly, if anything's paranormal at all, it's how fast time goes.
Yeah, and it's coming up really fast.
Yes. Omaha Comic-Con, July 13th, 14th, and 15th here in the metro area. It will be in Council Bluffs at the Mid-America Center. And we're going to be there, Paranormal Dads.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. As part of the Podcast Arcade, we have our own booth in the Podcast Arcade area of the convention. And not only will we be there, we also have a panel and some other fun Paranormal Dad interactions.
You'll just have to keep an eye open for the big Paranormal Dads banner.
Yes!
That we've acquired, so it will be easy to find if you're out there on the floor walking around. Stop by and say hi to us. We're excited to be there, and it should be a good time.
If there's any place at all to let your paranormal flag fly high,
It's O Comic Con.
exactly. So, yeah, look for us there, and stay tuned for more updates as we get closer to those dates. But O Comic Con is probably the big thing that's coming up our way right now, and that's the earliest thing. I mean, there'll be other things down the line, too. But we have a thing in October even, don't we?
Yeah. One of Andy's shows, he's going to have us as special guests for one of his shows, and probably tell some ghost stories. It's going to fall in October, middle of October, getting ready for Halloween, so that'll be a good time too.
For maximum spookiness. Check us out. But yeah, just really getting geared up for O Comic Con and getting all sorts of ducks lined up, paranormal ducks lined up, and ghost ducks and zombie ducks. And with that all being said, let's get into some recent sightings, shall we?
And it is kind of aquatic in nature, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is indeed. Aquatic indeed, sir. Aquatically insane. I don't know what that means. So I got on a tear. I got into the rabbit hole. And I encourage anyone else to do this, of aquatic mysteries. Space is fascinating. Don't get me wrong. Like, space is my, crack. Like, I love space.
Right.
I love science fiction. I love all the stuff that happens up in the stars. But there's also something equally, I think, mysterious about under the oceans.
And it's mind-boggling thinking about how much space is down there.
Yes.
You know, I don't... People just kind of see the surface of the ocean, and they don't really think about how far that actually goes down and what could possibly be down there that we don't even know about.
It's insane. It's insane. I have read, and this is where you're going to, once again, in true Paranormal Dads forum, please don't use us as like a scientific forum here. Hey, this is a great book report. Where'd you get it from? I listened to Paranormal Dads. I have read that underneath the ocean, if you go and you do the topography of the ocean floor, there are trenches deeper than the Grand Canyon, and there are even mountains taller than Everest. Am I wrong in this?
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're dealing with a landscape that for every definition, every part of the definition of the word of alien, that's the underwater world that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And so I got on just a weird bender because I had last week was just a bad week for me, very busy, very intense, we all have these times with work and stuff, and so my way of handling kind of those things is I go off and I listen to something that takes my brain into a whole different direction, and so I got on this weird rabbit trail of underwater mysteries. And we could go crazy talking about so many of these things. I mean, and I want to bring them up. There's underwater Stonehenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at your
I've heard about that.
heard of
It's
too.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like there is a Stonehenge under the water and significantly deep.
And there's, of course, we had our episode on Atlantis.
Yes. Yeah.
You
But there's apparently underwater, like what looks to be pyramids on some levels, off the coast of Japan. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I haven't heard
Put that in your brain pan and let that simmer for a little bit. There's a lot. Did I cut you off? There was something you were going to say.
No.
Okay.
No.
But go ahead.
I'm completely blank.
Like the surface of the ocean.
Like the surface.
One thing that's really interesting about the ocean too, and we know about these tsunamis and big waves, but they were going into some of the just sheer height, not even tsunami waves, just like normal big waves. But even then, as tall as mountains.
Yeah.
It's, anyway. So this is the world we're going to live in right now for a little bit on recent sightings. So this might not be a sighting. This is where I'm bending the rules of recent sightings. This is recent auditory phenomena. So around the world, and I don't know specifically where, but off of coastal areas around the world, as part of like an oceanic study, there are, and Coleton, you had the
It
word.
was like an underwater hydrophone.
There you go, the hydrophone. Well done. High five. Paranormal Dads.
Yeah.
High five. So there is a study just to record various sounds under the ocean.
Like listening posts.
Exactly. Listen towers, not watchtowers. You save those watchtowers for the surface, you landlubbers. And so they monitor various underwater sounds. Well, there's several underwater anomalies that they've picked up. And we won't get too much into this one per se, but there was one that sounds a lot like a rocket taking off, like an underwater ship taking off. Like sounds like a NASA rocket, just and they have no sense of anything like that at all. So the one that I want to talk about, and Coleton's probably queuing it up here, is the Bloop. And
Bloop?
Yeah, exactly.
Here, I'll see if I can.
And if you can hold it up to the microphone, even do you have it queued up, Coleton?
Yeah.
All right, here we go, guys. Listen to this sucker. That was it. No, it sounds really inconsequential.
Right.
But when you understand what's going on behind it is when things get a little bit crazy. So this was picked up by hydrophones that were stationed all over the world, and it was picked up simultaneously at the same time.
So real time. We're not talking about different time zones. It's like it happened everywhere at the same time.
Exactly. Like people listening posts in Japan heard it at the same time as listening posts in Virginia. They heard the bloop.
Okay.
And so they broke down the frequency and all those things of that. These audio nerds. No offense. That's what we are. We're audio nerds. We're recording a podcast. Studied and broke down all the data sets on this, and they said for it to be that audible for all these different hydrophones, it would have had to have been so loud that it would have been deafening. They almost said, and the article I read was maybe, I don't know, being a little bit crazy with it, but it was like, if it was on the surface, nearly everyone on Earth would have heard it at the same time.
Really?
Yeah, that loud. And they have no idea what caused it. That's the thing
See,
that
that's
starts.
the scary thing.
There's a lot of theories, though. Like,
There's a lot of theories.
Yeah,
What are some of the ones you heard?
some people say that it's an undiscovered underwater animal that nobody's heard of or seen. Others say that it's just an underwater volcano erupting, because I'm pretty sure that audio was sped up like 16 times, because if you hear it just normally, it just sounds... or like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like long and drawn out.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of theories on what this thing could be, but nobody really knows what it is. I think even with the volcano theory, it's still a theory because there's no seismology behind it.
Right. Yeah.
There's
would
no
have,
Earthquake, you have
like a
something,
Richter
yeah.
scale reading or something.
Right, you would
like
have
that.
something that would also back that up, and they don't have that. So then you get into the Paranormal Dads zone of some of this stuff, where they talk about maybe it's an underwater civilization.
A rocket ship taking off.
A rocket ship, a la The Abyss. If anyone's ever seen that movie, very much similar. That's what some of the theories are with that. That, hey, guess what? You guys are looking up in the sky for aliens when the whole time they're under the oceans. In conjunction with the bloop. And this actually does tie kind of neatly into, I believe, maybe a few episodes back where we talked about the more recent sighting of that, like, the Tic Tac that was changing shape in the sky.
Yeah, over in San Diego.
Yeah.
Off the coast of San Diego.
Around a similar time, if not the same time, these guys reported a ship over the ocean that they believed went into the water.
Right.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
And they saw a surface disturbance on the water.
Yeah,
That
almost like not necessarily bubbling, but it was like a round. I think it was a round shape.
Yes.
Pretty large space.
Yeah.
In just under the surface of the water.
Just barely underneath.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like almost like it wasn't like multiple bubbles. It was just like
a giant
churning, object
right.
almost churning under the water.
Yeah. So this was linked to a tie to, now this bloop is quite old, not quite old. I mean, it's a few years ago, but this bloop ties into some of these underwater phenomena that sometimes these things go along with sightings of weird things, lights, a lot of lights. People will report lights that seem to be on the surface of the ocean, and then they go on. And this is out in the middle of nowhere, the ocean, not like off the coast of somewhere. So very interesting. But yeah, especially the bloop. You listen to the bloop and you start reading the data behind it, and it's crazy.
You also wonder if it could be something like, one of the possible causes of the Bermuda Triangle are those gas bubbles that come up, and could this be like some kind of a massive gas bubble being released? As funny as that sounds,
it's a giant aqua fart.
Yeah,
Blue whale
exactly.
fart.
Excuse me.
Sorry, guys. That was my bad. And not just the bloop, but there's things from like weird chirps that don't really belong to anything that they know of on record as far as animals go. They've got this weird rocket like roaring sound that, once again, they don't have anything to compare it to. There's a ton of underwater auditory phenomena that they just can't quite tie to anything.
Yeah.
So very, very weird. I mean,
that is crazy.
Space is something, but under the water, that's something too. Don't forget about it.
Yeah, I've heard that we know more about outer space than we do our own oceans.
Yeah.
So.
No, very true. I mean, and the thing too about the oceans, and I was reading up a little bit about this, and someone even, and these guys, it's always like the military, like, how the Army makes fun of the Navy and the Navy makes fun of them.
Right.
But like the underwater guys are like, yeah, you think space is so cool, man. Under the water's where it's at. And they were like going into some of the hostile environments of the water, how there's like acidity levels and the pressures and the temperatures are nothing compared to space. Like it would just crush you in a second, and it's interesting.
And then you got the terrestrial guys saying, yeah, but we got trees, man.
Exactly.
We got mountains.
We got ticks, man. We got ticks with Lyme disease. You die right there. The one of the things too that I was, and this is a little bit off the path here, but not too much. On that same underwater thing, once you get to certain depths, there's actual cases of underwater. This is where it gets nuts. Underwater rivers. Have you heard of this?
Really?
Like,
so
is it like currents?
No, it's kind of like a current, but it's also it's a current combined with salinity. differences. And they go, there will be.
So it's almost a different type of water.
It's a different type of water in the water, and it has its own current system because of its density. So you look at it, and it actually has its own. It's because of the current that it's running on. It's worn down its own riverbed, and this water is flowing its own direction under the water.
Under the water. That is amazing.
It's
Try
crazy.
To comprehend that, kids.
Yeah. Good night, Billy. Click. You see Billy staring at the sky with all these math equations happening. I just for fun reading, look up underwater rivers, and there you go. You'll be busy for days.
And don't forget to look up the Bloop.
And look the Bloop up as well.
The Bloop.
It's time for pop, culture, and the paranormal.
So last week, you and I got together just as kind of a social thing, which was kind of unusual for us. Usually when we get together, we've got some kind of an agenda of something we're doing, be it a TV show or a podcast or whatever it is that we're doing, But last week we just kind of got together and chilled, and
it was nice.
Yeah,
peek behind the Paranormal Dads curtain a little bit here. The one thing that's cool about doing something with your friends is that you get to do something with your friends.
Right.
Like, how fun is that? And you get to share it together. But the other side of it is sometimes it's all you end up doing, and like you don't get a chance to socialize like maybe you would if you weren't creating something.
Right.
So I don't know.
So this was one of those
It's a good
times
balance.
We did get a social
We did, and it was fun.
And we're like, well, let's see what we can find on Netflix. Let's see if we can find a movie. And actually, I think it was
Amazon Prime.
It was Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Is where we found it. But we found an old movie from 1976 called Creature from Black Lake.
Yes. Well, to give a little bit of background too on this, and this is what I loved about, like, this is when you know you're good buddies with somebody. You and I were speaking the same language without speaking the same language. We were like, we're going to see what's on Amazon Prime. We're not renting anything. We're not buying anything. We're only going to watch what Prime has to offer.
Right.
That's it.
And we stumbled across this gem because being the paranormal dads that we are, we're like, oh, well, I wonder what kind of Bigfoot movies they've got.
Exactly.
And I was actually kind of surprised at how many Bigfoot movies are out there. There's some of them fairly recent.
Take your pick, everybody.
There was one, like some kind of what was it, Bigfoot 2013 or something like it. It looked like some kind of a fictional Bigfoot.
It was like future Bigfoot.
Future fighting. I don't know what it was, but it was kind of crazy.
There is no shortage of Bigfoot movies. They had ones that were like, take your pick. You could have like peaceful, like Wild Boy and Bigfoot, or you have like this monster, scary Bigfoot. I mean, it was every up and down, all over the place.
But we came across. I mean, the 1970s were great for Bigfoot movies. That was kind of the golden age of Bigfoot movies.
It really was.
There were a number of movies in the theater that you could go see that featured Bigfoot or Bigfoot-like creatures, either as a fictional movie or some of them were billed out as being documentaries.
Yeah.
And so this one was definitely fictional.
Yes.
But basically the way the story went was it was focused on a couple of guys who were just kind of out in the wilderness, kind of hippie-like, and just kind of some of their adventures they ran into the woods, and they were not far from town. They could go in, hang out in the diner, insult a waitress.
What I loved about it was she turned on them quick.
Yeah, she did. They actually were kind of friends with this waitress throughout the movie, and then at one point, I don't even remember what it was they did, but they made her very mad. They didn't even get their food. She basically threw their food at them and kicked them out of the restaurant.
They did something that caused her to like drop a plate.
Oh, no. What it was, they had a recording of a Bigfoot
yes,
that they had
and
made.
It roared.
And it roared. And he played it as she's carrying this tray and startled her.
Yeah.
And she went ballistic.
Yeah.
And so kicked them out of the restaurant.
Yeah.
So they were no longer friends with the nice little waitress.
That friendship was over.
Yeah. So, but anyway, these guys are hanging out in the woods, and they met a couple of other girls in the restaurant and took them out into the woods as well.
As the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Or reversal. The Lord taketh away, the Lord giveth.
And the young 20-somethings, as 20-something people do, they'd go out and they were just kind of having a good time in the woods.
Canoodling, if you will.
Snuggling. And so, of course, while they're in a tent, Bigfoot comes poking around their tents.
See, kids, that's why you should always, don't go in the forest with your girlfriend. Bigfoot's going to come
And then at some point, he started roaring and throwing things and freaked the girls out and freaked the guys out. And, of course, somebody had a shotgun and started waving that around. Almost shot a sheriff who happened to be one of the girls' father.
Which is, I believe, how the Eric Clapton got the idea for the song, I Shot the Sheriff.
And he almost did.
He almost did.
And the sheriff threw him in the slammer just for the night, though.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. It's like,
Wasn't one of the girls the sheriff's daughter? That was also the plot twist.
yeah, and it was like he didn't really arrest him. He just said he first he took the shotgun away from him, then he gave it back to him.
Yeah.
What?
1976.
But then he still escorted him to jail, took the shotgun away again, put him in the slammer for overnight, where they met the old timer guy.
Yes.
Who was there, had a little too much to drink, and they started talking about the monster that they saw.
He was the guy with the crooked eye from Cannonball Run. I finally figured
Really?
that out today. Yeah.
So his name was
Crazy old McGee. Pickle Shoes Williams.
here we go. Here's the cast list.
Buckle Strap Billy.
He was Grandpa Bridges, and that's Grandpa.
I wasn't far off.
Spelled Grand P-A-W.
Ooh.
Grandpa Bridges.
Ooh.
That starring Dub Taylor played that role.
That's the guy.
Yeah. So and then there was our friend Pahu. He was the guy who ended up.
Was he the guy who looked like he was like
injured.
87? But
Yeah, he looked like he was 87, but he was supposed to be like 20-something.
in all honesty, he probably looked like he was easily middle-aged. And he's hanging out with a guy who's like 23, and they're supposed to be like compadres. And I'm always like, that guy's like 25 years older than him. And it seemed like a weird mix.
This doesn't match up.
I got a young soul, man.
So the plot doesn't really go anywhere. You know, you've kind of heard enough as far as the plot. It's a fun movie to watch.
It's very fun.
If you want to, it's just something mindless to watch. Go check out, The Creature from Black Lake. It's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. It doesn't do a bad job building tension, though. I will say that.
Yeah.
When the creature shows up, you're a little bit like, whoa, what's he going to do? Like, you're not, like, terrified. It's more suspenseful than anything.
Yeah.
Like, amusingly so.
And just the fashion sense these people have was just amazing.
It's so good.
Dudes walking around with their shirts off. And we were talking about that. It's like, remember back in the 70s when you could walk around with your shirt off and no one would think twice about it?
No one cared.
Could you do that today?
No.
Probably not so
No.
much. Unless maybe you can get away with it if you're out running or something.
Running.
And
Yeah, mowing the
built
lawn.
pretty good.
Yeah, even if you're not, people aren't going to say anything.
Yeah,
Like,
but I mean, back then, they drove their cars with their shirts off. They
Yeah.
just walked around. They'd go in the store with their
Go to the
shirts
Dairy
off.
Queen, you just roll
Sure.
up. Yeah.
And bandanas. You'd have a bandana wrapped around your head.
Bandanas were everywhere.
Yeah.
I remember like pictures of like my mom would have one like tied around her leg for no reason, like just an accent scarf like tied around her elbow. Like, okay, that's cool, I guess.
But I tell you what, back in the 70s, if you ever needed a tourniquet, people were ready.
People, if you had to lose your hand, you knew you were safe. What I loved, the one that quintessentially was perfect for me was when he was strutting down the street. He had a button-up shirt on, but he only had like 2 buttons, and the rest was just wide open for the world to see, complete with, like you said, red neckerchief, which is the handkerchief worn around the neck for all you unschooled
Like a
heathens.
choker.
It was gorgeous. I paused it and I go, we need to bring this back now. The world needs this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Anyway, I mean, I guess we can't go much further than that. But hey, it was a good time.
It was great.
Check it out, Creature from Black Lake.
From the opulence and excess of Beverly Hills to luxurious destinations around the globe, it's time to rub shoulders with the privileged and successful among us, as Paranormal Dads now offers you a look into the paranormal lifestyles of the rich and famous.
This is exciting. We're premiering a new segment.
I'm so excited about this.
This is fun.
This is gonna be good.
So it's always fun to throw in a new bit to the show. This is something we're going to try to do on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah.
But, of course, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek nod to the lifestyles of the rich and famous. Robin Leach, the great shows that he put together. And
If you wondered what Betty White's closet looked like, wonder no more.
So one of the things we've discovered, though, in preparing for some of our shows is there are a lot of stories about rich and famous people and the paranormal.
Yes. Everything from Elvis seeing aliens to Eric Clapton giving piggyback rides to Bigfoot. I just made that one up.
And I can't even remember the actor right now, but it was a famous actor, Goldie Hawn's husband. Was it Goldie Hawn's husband? With the Phoenix Lights.
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, he was flying a plane.
He was flying a plane. Witnessed the
The
Phoenix
Arizona Lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of thing we're going to focus on. And Coleton came up with the first one for tonight. What did we get?
Okay, so this happened in an interview. It was Miley Cyrus. She was in an interview and she revealed that when she was staying in a London flat during her 2009 European tour, she claims that it was haunted. So she said that it used to be an old bakery that got turned into the apartment, and she claims that one night her little sister was standing in the shower when Miley Cyrus heard her scream. So she ran in there, and the water, like the knob for the water temperature, had suddenly flipped to like maximum heat, and it was like burning her. So
Ouch.
That's not nice.
that's not that's
That's a
very
bad ghost.
nice.
That's not a good ghost.
Yeah, and then also on the subject of showers, Miley also said that she thinks that she saw a little boy sitting on the sink watching her take a shower, and she thinks that the boy was the son of the person who used to own that butcher shop. So-
Inappropriate ghost. Or he's like, hey, I gotta use the bathroom. You're
it's
taking
like,
too long.
Are you done yet?
I gotta use the toilet. This is not
Hurry
good.
up, come on.
Oh, he's British. I'm sorry. I need to use the loo. Get off the shower, mate.
This is true.
So she was there for how long?
I'm not sure. It didn't say.
But she
But
was.
she was on
she
tour
was
in
there.
Europe.
Okay,
And
so that
it
was her
said-
home base for a
And
while.
yeah, they were kind of basing out of this place. Was it London?
It was,
This flat in
London.
London's got a lot of weird history, though.
Oh,
I mean, that town. I mean, first of all, it's old as all get out, and
Right.
secondly, I mean, you name it, and there's all sorts of drama with that place.
She said that she's never going back in that apartment ever again. Too,
Really?
In that interview.
You wonder how like those places sell after the fact. Like, oh hey, Miley Cyrus said this place was haunted, so
Well, I could also see, you got the people like us who are interested in that sort of thing. It's
Right.
like, oh, I want that. I want to live there. I want to experience that.
I want to see
ooh,
that.
yeah, that's the next level,
There's two types of people in this world.
right?
But it's interesting, with Miley having her experience. Her dad is also fairly well known in paranormal circles. Billy Ray Cyrus.
Yeah.
He had an experience with that same daughter, the little girl who was burned in the shower.
Oh no way.
They were in it was called a place called Ripavilla Plantation in Tennessee,
Okay.
near where they lived. Some warm summer night, they drive up to this plantation. Apparently, it's a place they normally go. Just kind of get out of the house. It sounds like they went for a drive and pulled up and parked up there. Just kind of had the windows down and were enjoying the summer night air. And they witnessed a shadow figure come out of a door. The door never opened. It just walked through the door. A dark shadowed figure
What?
came out on the front porch, looked at Billy, and of course the girl saw it too, and she's like, Daddy, get us out of here. So Billy slams the truck into gear. They start spinning the tires. They go roaring out of there. But Billy went back. He went back and actually did a TV show with like some ghost hunter type people.
Oh my goodness.
To see if they could find out what it was he saw. And I haven't seen the show. I don't really know what they saw or heard or what, if they. But yeah, and I guess he was also in the works for doing like a UFO type show too.
I would watch
Billy
that.
Ray was.
I would watch that. I
that'd
know
be
Rob
kinda
Lowe did his,
interesting.
but I want to see Billy Ray look for ghosts
That's
too.
our
You
next
know.
homework.
Yep.
Poor Billy. He's got that achy breaky heart for paranormal stuff. He's got a soft spot.
Oh man, you beat me to it. Oh, that's crazy, man. So that's a house that she's gonna have trouble offloading, I think.
But then it gets crazier because also after all of that had happened, her aunt, who they hadn't told her about any of this stuff, she came into her room and she started freaking out. She said that when she left the apartment to do something and then came back, all of the windows and doors were cracked open and they were all like closed and locked when she had left. And then she came back and everything was just like
Everything's open.
everything was open. So
It's gonna.
That is so much happening at once. I would be out of there so
I would-
fast.
Now it makes you wonder, is it more like a hotel type of place?
Right.
Did someone else have access to it? Or was it like a personal home where, you've got
Right.
it locked up tight?
she
Right.
said it was an apartment.
It's
So-
got to be like I would think if she's staying there and it's a flat, it's not in a hotel
You wouldn't
necessarily.
think people were traipsing through there.
And if it was like a housekeeper, I mean, she would know if the door was locked or the window was shut when she left the room.
Yeah, like, and then like normally housekeepers, if they're doing their job right, they'd like not even mess with
Right.
all that, or at least close it again.
They didn't leave an address on there, did they? Like where it was in London?
I don't think so. Here, let me see if I can pull up the website again.
Yeah,
It,
that is.
it was very near. Oh boy, I can't even think of the name of it. It's a famous shopping center or department store or something.
It's not like Piccadilly Square, is it?
Not Piccadilly.
Okay.
It was a different one, but it was like right across the street from this
Really?
place. So it's probably right in the heart of London, someplace.
You do think like coming to like celebrity types. I mean, there's even less reason for them to say something like this because like it could potentially
Could
damage their career.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, why would you come out and say
Right.
something
Unless you absolutely are convinced you saw something, It's like I know that isn't Graceland considered haunted on some level?
like the ghost of Elvis walking around?
I mean, maybe.
I saw the ghost of, wasn't that Mark Cohen song?
The ghost of Elvis is
Song?
living in my den.
I
Sorry.
can't remember the lyrics.
It's a Weird Al
but-
song.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting to me, like when celebrities take a step and say, "Hey, man, this happened to me too."
Yeah.
There's all sorts of stuff. This is going to be a good bit, I think,
Yeah.
Coleton, as we revisit this more and more.
I can't get the website.
Nah,
because
they're
my
fine.
Internet isn't.
I feel like this is going to be ripe territory for some fun stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, stay tuned for more.
On Paranormal Dads.
And now it's time for the main mystery.
All right. So main mystery this time around, we're talking about the Betty and Barney Hill experience.
Oh boy.
This is not the Jimi Hendrix experience, folks.
I do like that their portrait photo was them with their dog. by the way.
Yes,
It's very,
yes.
it's very
And the
adorable.
dog actually plays a part in this experience.
Oh my goodness.
The dog was there. The dog was experienced.
Take us down this path, Pat.
So what this is this is the story of the first reported alien abduction in the United States, or really probably in the world. Certainly probably one of the most well-known alien abduction stories. But I got a lot of my information from a lady named Kathleen Marden, who is the niece of Betty Hill. And this happened back in 1961 on the night of September 19th and 20th. Kathleen Marden, the person who I got a lot of this information from, wrote a book about this experience with a person named Stanton Friedman. If you know who Stanton Friedman is, he's a big name in the paranormal investigation world. If you've watched any number of UFO or paranormal type shows, you would recognize this guy. He's kind of has a goatee. He's a retired nuclear physicist, professional ufologist who was the original civilian investigator for the Roswell incident.
Oh, nice.
So he's been around a while.
Is this book's name The Interrupted Journey? Is that what this book is called?
Let's see. This one is called... I think that was one of hers.
Okay.
This one is actually called Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience.
Goodness
the true
gracious.
story of the world's first documented alien abduction. That's a mouthful.
That is.
Anyway, so...
Small print.
Yeah. So the way this story goes is on the night of September 19th, 1961, Betty and Barney were returning from a vacation in Niagara Falls and Montreal. And so they were returning to their home in Plymouth, New Hampshire. And as they drove along U.S. Route 3, the couple witnessed what they thought was a falling star. Except that the star stopped as they watched it. And it started going up. So it like changed directions.
Yeah.
It's a rising star.
And so they kept an eye on it, and they kept driving. Barney's driving the car, and Betty's watching this thing. And they decided, let's pull over and take a closer look at this. They had a pair of binoculars in the car. They had to walk the dog anyway, so they pulled over to kind of the scenic picnic area.
Mm-hmm.
And out in the middle of nowhere, no one around. It's dark. It's at night. And so they just kind of watched this thing for a while with their binoculars. After a while, they decided, okay, well, let's keep going. It's late. So they move on, and they notice this thing is almost following them now.
That is next level creepy.
Yeah, and so they go on. I think there's another time that they stop and then start going again, and the things keeping up with them. And they travel probably about 35 miles, and this thing is still with them. And at some point, they came to a point in the road where something is out in front of them, like a orange glowing ball, and it basically made a blockade for them where they couldn't proceed. They had to stop the car, and then it kind of arced up over the car, and at that point they get out of the car.
How gangster are these people, man?
Or Betty may have stayed in there if I got the story right, but Barney gets out, and Barney has a gun with him. He pulls out a handgun out of the car.
So Barney is the manliest man on the planet.
And so by this time the UFO was like above the car, and then it kind of shifts over this field next to where they're parked, and is kind of over this grove of trees. And so he kind of wanders out and is watching this thing through binoculars. And what he sees is nothing short of amazing. So he can see like the leading edge of the ship, and it has white and blue lights on it. And he, with the binoculars, he can actually see in the windows, and he sees what could be called creatures. He didn't say they looked human at all, staring back at him. And there were a number of them, probably like anywhere from like 8 to 11 of these things are looking at him, watching them.
Yeah.
And then at some point they're wearing black uniforms, which was kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
That they had like shiny black uniforms, and a good bunch of them kind of almost in a soldier precision move, take off like they're off preparing to do something. And there's just one of them that keeps eye contact with Barney, and he said that it was almost as if it was communicating a message to him to stay where you are, you're not in danger, kind of a thing, right?
Okay. Well, why can't I go?
Barney is at this point looking at him through binoculars, and he can't even pull the binoculars away from his eyes.
So,
but inside, he's like panicking. He's like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. Got to get out of here. He actually has to use his strength to pull the binoculars from his face and bolt to the car. The leather strap on the binoculars broke.
Yeah.
And he got to the car, and he's just panicking and Betty's like, what's going on? What's going on? He's like, we got to get out of here. They're coming. We got to get out of here. And after that, they don't really remember much. Right?
No.
The next thing they know, they're driving the car and they realize they're pulling into their home in Portsmouth.
What?
But they were expecting to get there about 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
It's dawn now. Okay,
Yeah.
so the sun's coming up. So they lost probably about 2 hours somewhere in there.
Right.
And they thought, they were just witnessing the spaceship, but they're feeling kind of groggy and they're not sure what's going on. And
Right.
it's like, how did we get home? How are we here? So they get out of the car and they notice Betty's dress is ripped, has like a 2-foot rip in the dress.
Whoa.
And it was fine when they took off, on their trip home. Barney looks down at his shoes, and Barney apparently is an impeccable dresser.
Sure.
His good shoes that he had on were all scraped up and scuffed up, something that he would never stand for, right?
Right.
And almost like he was being dragged with like his feet behind him.
Yeah.
And so then they start looking at the car and they find these marks on the car. And one of the things, when the spaceship was chasing them, they heard like a buzzing noise coming from the trunk, almost like it was almost like
Tracker.
a sound waves or something hitting the car.
Okay.
And they found these strange, like circles, concentric circles on the car, like stains or burns in the paint of the car.
That is
They could take a compass and hold it over these things, and the compass would start spinning, like,
So it was magnetized in some way.
Yeah. You'd hold it on a different spot in the car, and it wouldn't do anything.
Right.
You hold it over these, and the compass would just go crazy.
Just spin.
So they knew something
Was up.
was not right. Okay. So now
He's wearing his shoes on his hands. What's even happening here?
they
Pants are on his head.
the next day Betty decides, I'm going to notify the Air Force about this, because back in the 50s, what do? You call the Air Force. You see spaceship.
We trust the government. Ding!
So the Air Force, somebody calls them and does an extensive interview with them.
Yeah.
He was very interested in some of the aspects of the spaceship. He wanted to know about the craft and get a good description of that. And they were also contacted by, back then, the United States had a program called Project Blue Book.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was one of those first investigations that, involved in Project Blue Book.
Right.
So actually years go by, a couple of years, and they never really are the same after this thing. Betty's having nightmares. Barney is almost suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh, boy.
And back then it was called shell shock. You
Yeah.
have guys coming home from World War II, and they referred to it as shell shock. But Barney actually had to take time off from his job as a postal worker. He was a letter carrier, I believe, and because he was having ulcers, bleeding ulcers, just because of all the stress, that there was something underlying that he knew
Something was wrong.
that experience, something not good happened during this experience. So they actually started to open up to people in their church about their experience and what they think happened. And one thing led to another, and they got hooked up with a fairly prominent hypnotist, physician, psychiatrist from Boston. And he did a series of like 6-month-long interviews with both Barney and Betty. And it turns out that in those interviews, which he held separate from the two, and he didn't allow them, I think as part of the hypnotism, he didn't allow them to talk to each other
Right.
to share their stories. And both their stories were pretty parallel about,
What had happened.
And so they talk about being abducted, about these creatures doing experiments on them in their ship, taking samples, injecting them with needles in their stomach, Just some crazy, scary
That is
stuff.
crazy.
So,
And make them forget all of it.
In the tummy, no less.
yeah,
Owie.
yeah. Even though they worked with this doctor and they did some interviews and talks with people at the church, they really hadn't gone public until there was a newspaper from Boston in 1965. So this is like 4 years later that got a hold of the story and then ran like a 5-day story. Somebody had gotten a tape of one of their interviews that they gave at one of the churches and gave it to the press, and then they basically outed them as being alien abductees.
Yeah.
And at that time, they decided, fine, we're going to come out, we're going to tell our story. We know what happened to us, and that's kind of where they from then on they were kind of out in the open about their experience. So it was pretty amazing story to hear. If you want to go out on YouTube, just do a search for it. There's a lot of like little TV shows and things that tell the story. And,
That's crazy.
Dramatic reenactments and things like that. But
what happened to their dog? You have me.
I forgot about the dog.
Scared about
Well, apparently they were abducted and they came back to the car and the dog is in the back seat just shivering. Obviously upset.
Yeah.
The dog's fine. Sounds like the dog wasn't abducted.
Okay, good.
No animals were harmed during this abduction.
Just people.
Yeah, just the people. So
But the dog was reacting for sure. The dog was showing signs of being terrified.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
So, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. It's just it's an amazing story. But I kind of go back. You think about Carl Sagan. What he used to say. He said, "Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence."
They do,
and
that they do.
Yeah.
And this is where this would be kind of fun. I mean, I just looked at the article that came up for me, and granted, it was Wikipedia, but still, it was extensive. There's a lot to read about these people.
Yeah, yeah, and these were stand-up people too. These weren't just
they weren't
they weren't nutcases. They Barney was a postal worker. He was a very prominent member of the New Hampshire Civil Rights Movement back in the early 60s. They were actually they were an interracial couple.
Yeah.
And one theory people had was, well, all of this is just coming from you guys because you're stressed out about being an interracial couple.
What?
Why would you make something like that?
That is the most stupid.
Yeah.
Once again, like there is so many reasons for people to just try to maintain a lower profile.
Right.
Like to make these claims, you're a postal worker.
Yeah.
You're already working with the public good. So there's a lot of reasons why maybe you just kind of I'm going to keep this whole alien thing.
Betty
on the
was a
down low.
social worker,
Right.
and they were both active in their church.
Right. There's a lot to lose by saying
they
this
were
out
very
loud.
active in the community. And
Even
well-known.
just your friends thinking you're crazy. But I mean, for people to come forward, and I'm not saying that automatically proves this, but I think it's something definitely worth considering. I mean, to say something, how many times, there's things that you say within trusted company, like I think I saw a ghost, but you would never just say and then have it published or have a podcast where you just throw it out,
tweet it out.
But I mean, especially back then too. I mean, we think about Judgment now, like you were saying. I mean, they're in the middle of a civil rights movement. I mean, Judgment was at a crazy all-time high,
Right.
And so I mean, for people to go ahead and just hang this out there, like, oh yeah, by the way, we were aggressively abducted by aliens.
Yeah.
I love how it's like there's nothing to be afraid of, and then it's nothing but trauma.
Right.
After that.
Yeah.
Like it's so funny. That just gets me. There's plenty to fear, apparently. You black suit wearing alien. I know why you're wearing black, trying to look slim.
So
do some workouts.
But check out this story. Go out, look at YouTube, Barney and Betty Hill. A lot of information just in text form out on the web. Read about it. There's a lot of good books about it out there.
I've read there's also some discussion about a movie coming based on there.
And I saw that they were actually like within the past couple of years working on getting that made. So I don't know if they've actually started filming it yet, or if it's still on the drawing board, or what's going on with it.
What an
That'd be interesting to see.
What a crazy story. I mean, this is where, you, the listener, hey, look this up, see what you think, one way or the other. Like, there's a lot there. There's a lot there.
So anyway, that's about
that about puts a pin in it for
puts a needle in this one.
Yeah.
And we've got all of our normal social media stuff still out there.
Heck
we got Paranormal Dads on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Instagram.
Yep.
And then be sure you check us out next month at Comic-Con.
Yeah, please do. I also want to take a moment to also do a shout out to all the people who took the time to give us a review on on Facebook. That and hey, please consider doing a review also on iTunes. If we can get to a certain number of reviews on iTunes, it actually exposes us to some more opportunities through some other podcast hosting sites. So if we can get a few more reviews on iTunes, that would be amazing.
It would be great.
But thank you to all the people who reviewed us on Facebook. It means a lot to hear back from people who listen to our humble little paranormal show.
And also thanks to all the people at freesounds.org for providing us with the great sound effects that we use during the show. And thank you, Coleton, for stopping by tonight.
Yeah.
Super big thank you to our special guest co-host, Coleton.
It was kind of last moment. Dad was like, hey, by the way, we're recording tonight. Do you want to come along and come up with a story for our new segment that we're gonna do? So
that's the paranormal for you. It doesn't wait till you're ready.
It chooses you.
Exactly. And thank you for choosing us.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome to episode 18 of Paranormal Dads. I'm your co-host, Pat.
I'm Eddie.
And I'm special guest Coleton.
Join us as we explore... Welcome to episode 18 of Paranormal Dads. I'm your co-host, Pat.
I am Eddie.
And I am Coleton. I'm back.
Welcome to episode 18 of Paranormal Dads. I'm your co-host, Pat.
I'm Eddie.
And I'm guest co-host